Right now, over 2 billion cups of coffee are being poured around the world, today alone. That's not a beverage habit anymore. That's a global addiction, hiding in plain sight, in your kitchen, right now. But here's the question almost nobody asks. When did this actually start? And how did a bitter bean end up rewiring the entire modern world? Stick around, because this story has monks, banned drinks, revolutions, and yes, a dancing goat. Our story begins over 1,000 years ago in the highlands of Ethiopia with a goat herder named Kaldi. One day, Kaldi noticed something strange. His goats weren't grazing calmly. They were jumping, prancing, practically dancing. He traced it back to a small red-berried shrub they'd been nibbling on. Curious, he tried the berries himself. Suddenly, he felt it too, that unmistakable jolt of energy. Legend says he even joined the goats in their dance. Is this story historically verified? Not exactly. But it's the origin myth that started it all. Coffee's first chapter. From there, the beans traveled across the Red Sea into Yemen, where monks discovered something even more useful. Sufi monks began brewing the beans to stay awake during long nights of prayer and meditation. By the 1400s, coffee had a name, kawa, and a home, the world's first coffee houses in the city of Mocha. These weren't just cafes. They were called schools of the wise, places where people gathered to talk, argue, and debate ideas. From Yemen, coffee spread through the Ottoman Empire, Cairo, Damascus, and eventually Istanbul. But not everyone was thrilled. Religious leaders in Mecca actually banned coffee in 1511, fearing it encouraged rebellious gatherings. The ban didn't last. Coffee was simply too popular and too profitable to stop. By the 1600s, coffee reached Europe, and Europe did not know what to make of it. Some Christian clergy called it the bitter invention of Satan, worried it was replacing wine and beer at the table. So they asked Pope Clement VIII to ban it. Instead, he tasted it himself and loved it so much, he blessed it. With the Pope's approval, coffee houses exploded across London, Paris, and Vienna. In London alone, by the late 1600s, there were over 3,000 coffee houses. People nicknamed them penny universities. Why? Because for the price of one cup, you could sit for hours, read the news, and talk with anyone in the room, rich or poor. Here's where it gets wild. Some of today's biggest institutions were literally born inside coffee houses. A small coffee house run by Edward Lloyd became the meeting spot for ship insurers and eventually became Lloyd's of London. Scientists and philosophers debated new ideas over coffee, helping fuel what we now call the Age of Enlightenment. Some historians even argue coffee houses helped spark the scientific revolution simply by keeping people awake, alert, and talking. Coffee wasn't just a drink anymore, it was infrastructure for commerce, science, and free thought. But this rise came at a brutal cost. As demand grew, European powers raced to grow coffee in their colonies. In Haiti, Brazil, and across Southeast Asia, coffee plantations were built and run on the backs of enslaved and forced labor. By the 1800s, Brazil alone was producing more coffee than the rest of the world combined, a position built on immense human suffering. It's a part of coffee's story that's often left out of the pretty packaging. But it shaped the industry we still have today. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution. Factories needed workers who could stay alert for 12, sometimes 16-hour shifts. Coffee became fuel, not for philosophers this time, but for laborers keeping the machines running. During World War II, soldiers were issued instant coffee in their ration kits, compact, fast, and effective. That wartime habit came home with millions of soldiers, turning instant coffee into a household staple almost overnight. By the late 20th century, coffee wasn't just a habit anymore. It had become an entire culture and a whole identity. In 1971, a small shop opened in Seattle called Starbucks. Nobody expected it to change how the entire planet drinks coffee. Within decades, Starbucks and countless copycat chains spread to nearly every corner of the globe, turning coffee shops into a universal meeting spot. Then came the third wave, a new generation obsessed with origin, roasting technique, and flavor, treating coffee more like fine wine than fuel. Coffee shops became what sociologists call a third place, not home, not work, but somewhere in between, where people write, meet, and think. In other words, that goat herder from Ethiopia unknowingly created the blueprint for the modern coffee shop you're probably sitting in right now. So why does coffee actually hook us? It comes down to one molecule, caffeine. Caffeine blocks a brain chemical called adenosine, the one that normally tells you you're tired. With adenosine blocked, your brain thinks it's wide awake, even when your body still needs rest. Do this daily for long enough, and your brain adapts, needing more caffeine just to feel normal. That's the addiction. Today, coffee is the second most traded commodity on Earth, right after oil. It touches over 100 million livelihoods worldwide. From a goat herder in Ethiopia to a philosopher in London, to a soldier in the trenches, to you, right now, holding your own cup. One bean, 1,000 years, and a habit that quietly built the modern world, one cup at a time. So, since when have you been addicted to coffee? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe, because next time, we're diving into another everyday habit that secretly changed history.